White Whale Onion 2015. Ellie, 21 years old and drunk, was walking down a New York street. Just hours earlier, she had signed her very first modeling contract with Sanran and was now returning from the celebration party. The deal promised her $250,000 for 4 ad campaigns and 6 runway appearances throughout the year. Somewhere along the way, she noticed a homeless man on the sidewalk. He suddenly stood up and started walking toward her. That was the exact moment when the story of White Whale Onion began. Future Saint Laurent model, Elrid, was stabbed on the streets of New York that night. The homeless man mistook her for his ex-wife, a fact later confirmed by video recordings taken by a bystander who happened to film the incident. Hours later, that same man would testify before the NYPD. "I didn't know. Honestly, I wasn't even going to record it. When the guy asked me to, I thought it was some kind of joke. But when I saw the knife, I rushed over, tried to help. I keep thinking I could have stopped it much earlier." When Ellie was rushed to the hospital, the doctor's first move was to drown her in morphine, so much of it that she probably didn't even notice when her first visitor, her mother, walked into the room. The medical report described internal bleeding and severe nerve damage in the lower spine, caused by a sharp object. Her mother's first call wasn't to family, nor to friends, but to the Saint Laurent office. In the world of fashion, appearances are everything. Ellie's mother had once modeled for Jean-Paul Gaultier, Louis Vuitton, Gucci. She had smiled down from Calvin Klein billboards in Tokyo. She was a star. To Ellie, she was a goddess. She grew up replaying her mother's old runway clips, dreaming of one day living that same life. But now, Ellie bore a long scar across her lower abdomen. 3 days later, the limp set in. No phone call to Saint Laurent could undo that. 10 years of ambition, $250,000, gone in an instant. Her mother wept for days. Ellie didn't. The morphine left her too numb to cry. The year was plagued with major data leaks and rising fears over digital security. Yet Ellie's personal tragedy unfolded on a very different front. Not long after the stabbing, a letter arrived. It was written on the heavy cream stationery of Saint Laurent. "Dear Elrid, after hearing of your tragic accident, the entire Saint Laurent team wanted to reach out and offer our support in this difficult time. You are a beautiful, talented young woman with enormous potential, and we sincerely hope to work with you again in the future. We are sure you understand our decision to end our 2015 contract following these unfortunate circumstances. Please accept this small gift set, prepared with care by several members of our team for you and your mother. Wishing you a swift recovery, sincerely, Saint Laurent." The day Ellie read that letter was the same day her morphine prescription was cut off. 30 days after the attack, she was in more pain than ever. It was a Friday. Ellie convinced herself that alcohol would be enough to dull the agony. It wasn't. That evening, her childhood friend Bethany offered another solution, a white powder. The drug worked. For a while. But when the high wore off, the withdrawal symptoms from morphine came roaring back. Ellie asked Bethany where she got the stuff. That was how she first heard of White Whale. White Whale was advertised in whispers as the perfect place to find what wasn't meant to be found. It was a Darknet market, allegedly created in direct response to the 2013 shutdown of Silk Road. But it had a disturbing twist. When Ellie entered Bethany's referral code, she was dropped straight into the opioids section. She clicked, "Accept task." A loading screen appeared, then a line of text. Task: lick a stranger's face from top to bottom. Reward: 40 grams of controlled substances. At first glance, White Whale seemed like a joke, but it was a cruel paradox. Only those desperate enough to try it discovered that the tasks, as absurd as they sounded, actually delivered results. Everyone else dismissed it as some twisted prank. The site's design only fueled that impression. A large button labeled Mysterious Substance opened a catalog with a single JPEG. Serum 114, from Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange. a drug used in aversion therapy, described as inducing nausea, paralysis, and fear, an ominous foreshadowing. And then there was the manifesto. Written in the sidebar, it declared, "White Whale was born as a direct answer to the closure of Silk Road. We believe in protecting the freedom of the Darknet market for tax-paying American citizens who just want to have fun. Through our task system, users will find fresher, more engaging ways to earn their substances. Soon, you will be free." To most, it looked like madness. To Ellie, it was salvation. Skeptical at first, she eventually completed her first task. The package arrived, and for the first time since the stabbing, Ellie felt genuine relief. But drugs don't last forever. Her Google search history from this period reveals the torment inside her mind. She questioned herself, doubted her choices, but always returned to the same point: relief. White Whale exploited that desperation, pushing users to see how quickly they could destroy their own dignity. Ellie shaved her head for pills. She forced herself to vomit for another shipment. She drank toilet water to earn opioids. Each act chipped away at her sense of self. By Christmas, Ellie had completed 5 tasks. She spent the holiday alone. By late December 2014, White Whale's popularity was exploding. The most sought-after substances disappeared from listings in minutes. Users described it as a race. You had to grab the next task before it vanished. On December 27th, Josie Small of the Wall Street Journal published a short article questioning the site's legitimacy. The only real source she cited was a Reddit thread. It was, as far as records show, the only mainstream article mentioning White Whale before 2015. Meanwhile, in the corners of YouTube, a small creator named Python44 began a series titled The White Whale Speedrun, where he attempted to reach the highest drug level in the shortest time possible. His channel was banned after the second episode hit 50,000 views in under 24 hours, a sign of just how fascinated people were with this bizarre marketplace. Among those drawn deeper into the spiral was Ellie. On December 28th, neighbors reported strange scenes in Ellie's apartment building: broken mirrors, shredded clothing, spilled cosmetics strewn across the hallway. It looked less like a home than a cry for help. But Ellie kept logging into White Whale. The tasks grew harsher, the rewards greater. Soon she wasn't just humiliating herself, she was committing crimes. She mailed threatening letters to Saint Laurent's headquarters in France, targeting specific employees. No one knows if the letters were ever received, but paranoia consumed her until she stopped sending them around January 5th. Her search history from that week revealed queries like, is it illegal to threaten someone by mail? Is it illegal to threaten someone in another country? Her wound, both physical and emotional, was still bleeding. Roughly 24 hours after receiving her 9th task, Ellie attempted to check herself into a psychiatric hospital. It was the first clear sign of lucidity in weeks. To this day, no one knows exactly what that 9th task was. But whatever it demanded triggered something in her, a desperate recognition that she needed help. While she waited for intake, Ellie's phone buzzed relentlessly. Friends began forwarding her videos. Anonymous emails had sent them footage of her White Whale tasks, every degradation, every crime, laid bare for those closest to her. A nurse later recalled, "She was trembling so badly. I handed her the intake form. She sat for maybe 5-6 minutes, then bolted out in tears. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Incidents like that happen constantly. Honestly, it wasn't my responsibility. I gave her the form. I did my job." Ellie stumbled back to her apartment in tears. She opened White Whale again. A new pop-up greeted her. Final task: stab a stranger on the street. Imagine it is the person who hurt you in the past. Reward: worldwide deletion of all prior videos. According to police reports, Ellie tried to upload a video from her phone immediately after stabbing a man on the street. But by the time the progress bar reached completion, she was already in handcuffs. Witnesses from nearby apartments claimed they heard her shouting, profanity, slurred speech, the name Saint Laurent. It seemed clear that in her mind, the stranger she killed had become the embodiment of the fashion house that abandoned her. 55 days after Ellie's arrest, White Whale went dark. The URL redirected to a plain Russian message. The White Whale experiment is complete. We have cleansed the world of large amounts of biological waste. All videos submitted by participants were sent to their friends and families. In total, the experiment cost $423,000. We hope this donation has provided a valuable lesson. As always, we will return soon with a new experiment. Questions swirled. Did the site ever truly exist? Or was it an elaborate hoax? What was undeniable was the damage left behind. Videos of more than 400 users surfaced among their friends and relatives. 24 were imprisoned for attempted murder. 6% of the user base had been desperate enough to attack another human being. The fates of the other 376 remain unknown. Another disturbing detail. Videos only leaked publicly if a user had completed 5 or more tasks, which means the true size of White Whale's user base may never be known. The most grotesque clips spread across the internet, racking up millions of views. Some communities even praised the group known as F57 for carrying out the experiment. Much of what we know today comes from a book published by Ellie's mother 4 years later. Only 88 copies sold in the first year. As for Ellie herself, she is eligible for parole in 2036. I keep coming back to the man who recorded that very first stabbing. Why did he film it at all? Why did the homeless attacker demand a recording of his crime? And why did his words echo so precisely the final task Ellie would later receive? Find a stranger on the street. Imagine it's the one who hurt you. Was the homeless man himself a victim of White Whale? Another puppet of the most disturbing marketplace the Darknet ever spawned? We may never know. Remember, everything you just read was fiction. None of these events happened in the real world. Thank you for watching, and please, don't believe everything you see.